Hi everyone, welcome to our Claris FileMaker training course on how to build a custom CRM in 30 days. This training is designed primarily for beginners or those of you who need kind of a refresher with the Claris FileMaker platform. Over the course of 30 days, we're going to spend about an hour each day covering topics from the very basics of the Claris FileMaker platform in terms of the tools, the products, deployment, security, all those things you need to know about as you build a custom application. So keep in mind that towards the beginning of the training, the topics are more basic in nature. And as we get towards the end of the training, they're somewhat more advanced. I would say probably intermediate level topics. Now keep in mind this special part of this training is that while we're not only talking about the FileMaker platform, we're talking how you can rapidly customize an existing free CRM that you can download today. It's unlocked. So taking that CRM and customizing it to your organization's particular needs. Now, a couple important links to keep in mind. One is that if you need a copy of FM Starting Point, the free Unlock CRM, visit fmstartingpoint.com and press the button. And then our system will shoot you an email with the current links to that CRM. If you're looking for additional FileMaker training, visit fmtraining.tv and press the bundles button. And that will allow you to get more of this highly animated and somewhat energetic training material to help you through the learning process with the Claris FileMaker platform. Lastly, if you have questions about the FileMaker platform or you're looking for some additional help, maybe some one-on-one coaching help, feel free to email us at support@rcconsulting.com. Day two is script triggers. So there, if you see you get to July 4th, there'll be a gap in here, okay? Tomorrow is script parameters and user preferences. Script parameters and user preferences. We're talking about script parameters a little bit with triggers because that's how you kind of control the trigger. So that'll be kind of a little bit of a recycle from yesterday to tomorrow, etc. So we want to answer questions in flight because if you ask a question, odds are other people have the question. And you're reminding me of these. Listen, I've been doing this so long, I've heard almost all the questions, okay? About once a year, someone does something or asks me something, and I don't have an answer for. So let's answer the question because people have these questions. So Lonnie laid us with two questions. And so first one that Lonnie asked the question is that, it's a really great question. So first off, Lonnie's building a FileMaker solution. Doesn't matter what it is, okay? He has a business associate who's also working on the FileMaker solution. One of them is in Hawaii, one of them is not in Hawaii. It doesn't really matter. They could be on the moon. The mechanics here are the same, okay? And so they're not using FileMaker Server. So there's a frown right there. I have the automatic frown on my face because that means that they're not having automatic backups and other things to really take care of the file, okay? You can get a FileMaker server pretty damn cheap, upwards of about $40 a month, maybe a little bit less if you're really cheap out on it, but about $40 on a credit card per month. If you can't afford that, then if you're working on FileMaker, your personal time must not be worth a lot. And I'm not picking on Lonnie or anyone else specific. I'm just saying the FileMaker licenses that we deal with at the end of the day are the cheapest part of the equation. Your time and the people's time, and if they lose a database or the database doesn't work correctly or whatever, that's where the costs are at. The costs are not with the $40 per month, right? If you have a team of 10 or 20 people and they can't work for 2 days because the database crashed and or you lost a copy of it or whatever, what's more expensive, $40 or having 2 people or 20 people that don't work for a couple days, right? You start to figure that out really, really, really fast. So the issue is that if you don't have, there's a conversation going on Discord. I'm going to ignore that for now. So the question is how do I collaborate with someone when we're not using FileMaker Server? There's the near-term answer, and then there's the long-term answer. The near-term answer is that you don't. There's no easy taking file A and file B and consolidating the structural features together, not the data, the structural features together. So if Lonnie works on 5 layouts and adds a relationship, and then Bill Wienerschnitzel in Hawaii adds 5 more layouts, edits 2 layouts, and does 5 relationships, there's no way right now to merge those together in a reliable sort of way. Claris has been working on this with the Star Trek transporter, okay? That being said, they updated the Star Trek transporter. I checked the docs on this for 19.5. The Star Trek transporter is considered alpha slash beta slash preview, which means it's not shipping, which means that they are more or less aware that it's not complete, not done, and has one or more bugs in it, which might destroy your work. So the Star Trek transporter is not done. We mentioned this in the 19.5 broadcast. They made improvements to it, but there's no magical XML reconciliation glue together thing, okay? You can try to do that, but it'd be me like saying, well, there's this, it's like me saying Elon Musk is ready to put the first person on the moon. The guy's pretty reliable and pretty and pretty good with what he does, but he's never had a reliable ship go to the moon ever. Okay. Even he's had spectacular demonstration failures, right? Where he had 9mm bulletproof glass on his new Cybertruck, and then they didn't think about it correctly, and he cranked a round out of his handgun right through the window or whatever he did, and it broke out the glass. And then they went, oh yeah, well, we already had overtaxed the window once, and so it was already stressed, it needed to be replaced. We never replaced it, so the boss did, so the goal is that on your first time on the moon, the first try on the moon, you want to be careful. I'm not going to recommend that any of you use the Star Trek transporter to reconcile your files together, because I don't know what's going to happen. And if it doesn't work correctly, it will destroy your work. Gone. Okay, so as a result of that, I'm not going to recommend you do that. If you want to collaborate with someone on a solution, that solution needs to be on a server. Then you're going to collaborate, and it will automatically all be one file. It will be very happy. It's not what Lonnie wants to hear. That's just the truth, okay? I would not use the Star Trek transporter to glue files together for a customer that's paying me. Okay. Now, all of you are not paying me, so maybe we would do it and you get what you get, right? But if a customer's paying me and I don't want to have to refund the money or do the work twice, because say you do the work once and then you try to consolidate together and the dog eats your homework, right? It's gone. It doesn't work. You got to redo the work a second time. Well, I don't want to do my work 2 and 3 times. Therefore, I'm not going to use a Star Trek transporter for anything important. That's what Claris means by their preview, right? Even the add-ons, really strictly speaking, that you have in the FileMaker are preview technology. All this stuff over here, when you come over here to FileMaker, you come over here and you say layout mode, and you say add-ons, and then you add an add-on, this whole thing. This is all prototype stuff or preview stuff. And people say, yeah, but it's really reliable. Well, okay, so this is a pre-canned block of code that you're going to take from a text file and inject it into a FileMaker file, and it's been pretty heavily tested. But the reason the Star Trek transporter and the underlying technology is not finalized is that they haven't certified it for everything. What happens when you have different levels of security credentials and things like that, and privileges and passwords and things that don't match, right? Then what happens, right? What does the FileMaker file do? So it's not ready for prime time. Someday, if Claris would ever finish the feature, then you'll be able to take your file, Lonnie's file, and Fred Der Wiener Schnitzel in Hawaii and press a button and they'll and come together. That would be great. We've been asking for that. They've been to frame this conversation, they've been monkeying with this prior to FileMaker 17. The first time we saw it in the product in any sort of capacity was FileMaker 17. So that's when the Star Trek transporter. What is a Star Trek transporter? Okay, this is it, right? We're in a FileMaker file. If I say tools, save a copy as XML. Okay, this is it right here. Okay, done. That's it. And so the Star Trek transporter just fired. Now, what it just did right there is a prototype. It's a preview software. It's not final nor it's approved. If I double click it and open it, this is the code. See this crap? These pages and pages and pages and pages. This is the raw code that builds this file right here. Theoretically, if you take this code and read it back into FileMaker, it will precisely reproduce this file perfectly. Except that it doesn't always do it. We talked about this. It's like the Star Trek, you break the person down their molecules. That's how it works in Star Trek. You beam them from point A to point B and you reassemble them. The problem is this technology will frequently lop off a finger or an ear or an eye. You hope it's not part of your brain because maybe you're just going to be there the rest of your life. You'll be mentally fried, okay? If you're missing a finger, it could be worse, okay? But I don't want to hang my customers' hats on that kind of stuff yet. It's just not ready, but this is it. So in the future, you would take, Lonnie would have his code, Der Wiener Schnitzel guy in Hawaii would have his code, they glue together, they're done. Okay, so that's that. I've killed that topic. It comes up all the time. People phrase it differently, but it's the same question over and over and over again, okay? That tech has never been in the product, it's not in the product, and only is mostly kind of there 90%. So you hope that that last 10% that's not in there isn't important, right? Because I can't tell you what the 10% is, but I can tell you it has to do with encryption and security and privilege sets and things like that. So anyway, okay, so Lonnie's next question was, what was the first question? That was the first question, right?
The next question was the find replace stuff.
Oh, the find replace. Okay, so let's talk about this real quick. So we're in the contacts file right here. Lonnie had a question. Hey, I'm in a FileMaker file and I want to have like 5,000 records, right? Like, let me do an import here real quick. I'm gonna just do an import. I'm gonna import from the contacts. Now let me do this one right here. Open this one up. Okay, add records. So here's the records, first name, last name, whatever. I'm just going to tell it to import it. It'll be close enough. Okay, so I import it. So now I have 5,000 records in here. So I'm going to delete that one. So now I have all these people in here, right? 5,500 records. Okay, and say that I figure out that there's some field in here that's not correct and I want to fix it. If I click into the field right here and I want to say that I know for a fact all these people came from Los Angeles, I could type in here Los Angeles, copy, and then I could go to the next record. Oh no! Oh, it's a type. Oh, is it? It's mad at me. Okay, is it this or is it? Oh, the timestamp is required to have a field. Revert. Okay, so it's mad about the timestamp. Okay, I'm going to fix that real quick. Here we go. This is why I hate the validations, right? Remember yesterday we talked about the bug and whip validation action? That kind of stuff. That's why, because when you use the bug and whip validation, which Claris likes to use, you end up with stupid dialogues that fire out of the blue. Okay, so let's try this again. Los Angeles, okay? Copy. Next record, paste, next record, paste, next record, paste. I got nothing to do for the next 5 hours, right? Or you could click in the field and right-clicking doesn't bring it up, but click in the field, go to records, say replace. Now, the rub is, I'm going to click in the field one more time to be very careful. This is very dangerous. It could replace with a block of text, replace with nothing, replace it with a serial number. This is where you could serialize everything sequentially, or you could write a calculation field here like 0, 2, and some sort of formula and the word Los Angeles, like that, right? And you say, okay, and then it's going to do it. It's going to say, hey, you're really, really sure, because it's going to do it to 504 records. You're like, okay, you're really, really, really sure. You have a backup in case you screw this up, replace. And so it goes into all 500 of them and has replaced that content. So cool. All right. So so that is the replace command. I'm hopefully, now here's the deal. It's a little, if you go into script workspace, and I'm just going to pop a new script, what's confusing, the script called confusing. I'm going to return down here a little bit. If I say find, F-I-N-D, you got perform, find, and replace. I almost never use this right here, okay? Perform, find is, when I say find and replace, I mean enter find mode, perform a find, then run another command to replace. This is a integrated kind of deal here where it's gonna, it's basically like a text find and replace, like when you're in a text editor and you say find all the quotes and get rid of the quotes, or find all the references to David Angel and replace it with David Learning because we got the wrong name. This is like a text function, like find the next one and replace it with this, and find the next one and replace it with, it's mostly inside across current record request, across all records. This was kind of like a BB edit, a text edit kind of capability here. I almost never use this, okay? It work for what you want to do, but frequently it confuses people, right? And so what I would do is I would simply perform the find, right? So don't use that one. Use enter find mode, right? With the pause off. Set some fields, set a field, right? And then you're going to perform the find, right? Not find replace, but perform the find. See right there the difference? Okay. Then after that, you're going to do some sort of validation, error checking, if the last error is something or whatever. And then you're going to run a replace command. It's called replace field contents as a script step. So same as what we saw before is replace field contents. So that's what I would do. Make sure you error trap because you're doing a find and you want to make sure that if the find didn't work or something didn't happen, it doesn't blindly run the replace. Okay. If you're trying to say find every week, find the records that were not quite right and fix them. Well, with this code right here, it would do the find. And if it fails, you're going to have a found set of a lot of records still potentially, and it's going to do replace on the wrong set of data. Okay. This is a kind of a certification test question, right? What happens if you have no find, if this find doesn't work right here, what's likely to happen? What will the results be? Okay. And it depends on a couple different things, but yeah, just be aware of that, right? You're going to want to do error trapping, if, right, get last error, get, and then parentheses, last error, right? If it's not equal to zero, if it equals zero, that means there's no error, okay? So if you say it's not equal to zero, that means something bad happened and you should probably exit the script or halt the script or whatever you want to do, not exit application, exit script, okay? All right, so that takes care of that one. What was the next one? The next one was about, Margaret, the next question from yesterday?
Yes, the next question from yesterday is from Keith. I'm going to read it out loud. Is this a step too far? Example, to validate the zip code that checks a country first and then validate the correct format. For example,
okay, stop. Just stop right there. That's all I need. So Keith wants to do something and with a field validation, okay? Or he wants to format it in such a way and validate it. So if Keith came to me and said, Richard, here is $10,000. I want you to validate the country. And I'd be like, okay, Keith, I'll take the 10 grand, no problem, okay? What I would do, well, normally if it's just, and I'm Richard, I'm the CEO, I just assigned to a senior engineer, but not with, say I'm going to actually do this. And Keith says, I want to validate the country zip code to make sure it's a real code, okay? The validation of the country code, it's like a zip code lookup, right? In the United States, like if you put a zip code in, like if you did 94534, then it would automatically come up with Fairfield, California, which is the assigned zip code. Of course, that's the wrong one, zip code there, right? And then Fairfield, California, the county, and some other stuff like that. That you could do with an API, okay? Way beyond the beginner pay grade in the world of FileMaker, okay? Just this, okay? There's no easy way to do it, period, okay? Now, however, an API being where FileMaker is going to talk to an online service and say, hey, post office or hey, online service, that would you do that with an API, okay? FileMaker talks to another service way beyond the pay grade. My suggestion would be to you as a beginner is go to a website. I'm going to type this up here because I don't know what the website's called. Brian Dunning, who's an interesting guy. And then you do custom functions, right? He has an online library over here, and he set this up. Well, I know that it would be, boy, that's interesting. Zip. Let's just do a search for zip code and just see what we come back with. Check zip. Creates a URL for the US. Oh, well, here's this one right here. Calculates latitude, line boundaries, radius of a location. What you do is you send the information, they send this stuff back to you, right? Was the idea. So this is kind of an API integration right here. It's not so much a custom function, but that's what you're looking for. If you're trying to validate something in FileMaker, you can either do it internally within FileMaker, which is what I'm thinking a custom function. It's a little bit easier for most people to wrap their heads around. Sending it to an outside service, first people are going to say, is it free? And then it quit working, right? Which is always what happens. It's just FileMaker free, and how come it's not free? If you're going to talk to an outside service, you're probably going to need to pay for that or pay something for it. There's very few services that are totally forever free. Even the US Postal Service, I'm pretty sure, will only allow you to send so many requests to it before it starts rejecting your requests. This apparently is some sort of deal like that. I would probably find a sample file that makes this work and see how it comes back. But the idea is that you can either validate it with your own function in FileMaker, a function in FileMaker, or you can send it outside to a outside service that's going to validate it for you. So for example, Avila Tax, another kind of free service. They had a free tax lookup in the United States. If you had the location of where the person was at and they had bought something, in the United States, different than Europe, a lot of places in Europe, the taxes are based upon the kind of product. They don't care where you live. They don't care where you live. The United States is actually really large, and there's all these little governments with each little set of its own little politicians, right? And the politicians all do their own level of Weasley level stuff. And so the tax rates in different areas change, totally change. And so what you do is you have to go into like Los Angeles and different parts of Los Angeles. I have to think different tax rates. And so you figure out where this person's at, and it comes back and says, on taxable items, it's going to be 9.2% or something like that. In the UK, it's like if it's based upon like, is it children food or children's clothing or some sort of essential thing, it's not taxed. And then then they consider you more rich and famous. Oh, well, if you're buying a car, then it taxes a lot. Like Claris event was in the Netherlands. I think the tax rate was like 150% or 100% on a car. So if you bought a $50,000 car, it became 100,000 because you pay the government 50,000 for the privilege of buying the car, right? And so, so the tax rates in some places really need to be calculated from an online service. Some places you can calculate them if you know what the formula is, right? Makes sense? Check dollar value, current. Format currency as text. Yeah, I've used this one before. That's a good one. That's where you want to put the dollar amount into a text field, right? I think we've talked about that. And then spelling it. Currency format for text. Yeah, so I guess you just have to, I guess you could just put zip. Address label, zip code, create, vive. So now we have a bunch more in here to look at, right? So yeah, the searches are pretty deep. I think some of the functions were deprecated. Oh, AMT right there. Okay, so yeah. So you say new, you say spell number. And then you're going to create a variable that you're going to pass into it called I guess. God, that interface is so backwards. Okay, so there. So that's the title, that's the variable. So you have kind of this thing going here. And then you're going to, so that right there matches up here. And then you're going to copy paste that code in here. And then assuming it doesn't lose its mind in the process, you hit OK and it works, right? So there we go. So then if we have, let's just say we'll create a field called, I'll call it dollar amount. That'll be a number field. I mean, we're kind of off. I mean, the problem is that you folks have asked a lot of questions and almost none of the questions have to do with script triggers, which is interesting. So today it turned into kind of a more of an open Q&A, but you got dollar amount, then I could say spell out the amount in words. Like on a check, it says you $1,383.21, and you have to put the, format all that. Spell out amount. I'll call it a calculation field. Could be done a bunch of different ways. We'll keep it simple. It'll be a text field if it works correct. And now that I have, what was the name of his function? It was called spell. What was it called? Spell something. Spell number. That is it. Okay, I wanted to make sure I had it correctly. So if I type SP, it's in here now. It sees that as a built-in function. Okay, I double click it. It says the amount. The amount is going to be the dollar amount that I had on the other field. Okay, we say okay. We say okay. And so we have a dollar amount down here. I'm going to make this field larger. So if I put 1. Okay, so it's 1. He's formatting because this is what would go into the and onto a check, at least in the United States. So if I write a check for say 2 hours, a bell 2:06 time, 2000 and two spaces in there. 2015 over 100. Okay, so that is interesting, right? So that is this function right here. So that's how you take a custom function and stick it in. So now we've taken out it. We did a search in the repository, or you save the link here, or you do a search for another item. You add it to your custom function. Now within this FileMaker file, anywhere within this file, any layout within this file, any table within this file, that custom function is now available, right? Pretty cool, right? So when I go into like my own solution, stuff like that, I have a collection of 7, 8, 10, 12, 15 custom functions that I tend to use just because it makes my life easier, right? We had one where we were highlighting text or something, doing highlights and whatnot. It was interesting. You can highlight text. You could tell it to go find something and highlight it, or it'll come over here and it'll, I can't highlight it because this is the calculation field, but it turns it fluorescent yellow like a highlighter through it, right? Something like that. Kind of neat stuff. There's all sorts of stuff you can do. Pretty cool. Postcode. Yeah. So yeah, once again, well, my goal partly with this training is to give you the tools. It's not give you the exact answer you're looking for. It's to give you the knowledge on how to find the answer or to narrow your search down so you can find it yourself, right? Because we're back to postcode, right? This is going to fix all the problems in the world. No, maybe it got trimmed out. I don't know. Let it kind of open. All right, so this is the solution over here. This is what I use to manage all the people's subscriptions and stuff. Like when someone says, oh yeah, I have your bundle, right? I can go in there and look it up and see what their status is. So in here, I have my own custom functions that I have used. Let's see what I have. So I have a custom function, add dollar format. Not sure what that's going to do. But then this makes text green and makes it red. Calcs the first of the week. Some of these I don't use anymore. Currency, right? Elapsed time, format a phone number, random, progress bar, makes text purple, purple bold, purple regular. I have another one that had to do with this color and generically color, like this one right here. If you look at this, if you look at it, I think it has you could ask for a color. Like Alice Blue. I have no idea what Alice Blue is. It sounds like a stage name for a stripper. So Alice Blue is on stage, right? So I don't, antique white, aquamarine, azure.
We have a question from Stu about script triggers, which today was supposed
Holy
to be,
on script
which
triggers.
never happened.
I'm still on external command, receive, layout, script triggers. When you use this, external command, I think is Go. I think that's a Go script trigger. Can't remember the last time I used it. In fact, I've never used it in combat and under a training operation. Yeah, on external command received. I think that is like notifications, right? Or something like that. We did a lot. If you go to our paid video course and you did a search for, boy, I tell you, on extra, I'm going to type and see if we get a hit on that. No, it's not in the title. Might be in the description somewhere. Let's see, notification. Syncing that, local notifications, Go and Web Direct.
I mean, the description of local notifications is getting a script trigger to send notifications.
Getting a script trigger to send notifications. Yeah, so I would look at local notifications here on Go. Right? We did a demo of this. I guarantee there's a demo on this. It had to do with notifications on the iOS. So the iOS is sending notifications. Maybe it's here, right? But we talked about it pops a notification at a certain time, and then by you saying yes on the notification, it shoots an event back to Go, and Go receives that, I think. I think that's what they're referring to. You can do a search on it too. I can't help you with that one.
How do we create shortcuts to trigger scripts?
How do we create shortcuts to trigger scripts? Or shortcuts on what computer, right? Where, right? It's different on all the different computers, right? Yeah, so that's that's not the topic for today. I don't know why Moki's here today. Moki, you're a very senior developer. Today's beginning baby Bambi basic day, right? So we're doing basic stuff for people. If you want to create a shortcut, it's different on the Mac than it is on Windows. And because it's different, I don't even bother with it, right, for the most part, right? Because Apple, they did what? It was 19.4 that they had the Siri shortcuts, right? You have to you have to do all this work, and then it only works on iOS. All your Android people are boned, right? right? So I as a general rule, unless I have 100 people using the same device, I try not to get into platform specific features. I really kind of like Christian Schmidt shows up on Monkey Bread and does something on Macs only. We had to have him come back and do some stuff on Windows just so the Windows people didn't feel like they were second class citizens.
Is there a script trigger for exiting your application?
Yeah, so it's on last window close. We talked about this yesterday. Kyle just pointed that out. We did discuss this yesterday. I'll kind of repeat this one again for you. You're going to run into a situation with your FileMaker file where the triggers are generally three groups of triggers. You have file-based triggers, which apply to the whole file. You have layout-based triggers that apply to a layout. Not all layouts, a layout. And then you have object-level triggers that apply to a specific object on a specific layout, okay? That's it. The file-level script triggers are here under File. If you say File, File Options right here, you got script triggers on first window, on last window, on. So the first window is obviously, so it's interesting. From a beginner perspective, that's just going to fire when you start your file, okay? I'm just going to keep it simple. On last window closes when you close the file. The problem is that a lot of people are on laptops, they're on FileMaker Go, they're even on WebDirect, which is even worse, right? I think if I would guess that 10% of WebDirect users actually properly close their file. The other 90% of WebDirect users are in a browser, they walk away and they get disconnected after 15 minutes to an hour and it just disconnects them. And if they're disconnected and they close the window or close the app, this close script will never run, okay? Now these two right here have to do with popping a new window, any new window. A new window, close a window, okay? So that's like if I pop a new window and I want to make sure it's always named a certain way, right? Or if I close a window, we do some maintenance. But first window, last window, first window is almost always going to fire. The last window, I would say 10% of the time on WebDirect, 50% of the time on Pro, less on Go, right? And so that's just because these people are getting disconnected, and it doesn't. If they are getting disconnected to a FileMaker file that's running up on the cloud or on a FileMaker server, then their file is protected. It can handle the disconnect correctly. If they're running a file locally and somehow it doesn't close properly, you're going to run the risk of damage. Lonnie, running a file locally. Like if we're running this file locally right now and say I'm investing all this time and money into this contacts file right here, then it suddenly crashes. Okay. Well, I may have corrupted the file. I'm going to double click it. It might not open. What's even worse about it is if I come over and double click it, and you're going to watch down here, I'm going to get rid of that one. If I double click it, I'm going to open it back up. It runs a recover log, right? It's actually doing a consistency check to see if the file is okay. It's like, hey, the file wasn't closed correctly, right? Checks these items, okay? Says it's okay. It thinks it's okay. It's not guaranteeing it's okay. It thinks it's okay, and it's going to let you keep going, okay? But if you keep crash, open, crash, open, crash, open, depends on what you're doing. But if you're doing a lot of complex scripting and some other stuff and crash, open, eventually the file's permanently damaged as a throwaway. And eventually the file doesn't open at all ever, okay? That's why you put this stuff on the server, okay? Because if you're actually working and you crash this file, I should take this file right now and throw it away into the trash and restore from a backup. Oh, I don't have a backup. Oh, I'm going to keep using the old file that was crashed. That's the road to hell is with that conversation right there. Okay. Got to use the backup. Well, I didn't make a backup because I didn't think I'd crash. Okay. I'm just telling you, don't be mad at me. Okay. If we're having any issues about why this is the way it is, right, we're going to ask our designated representative. This is Claris, okay? She is here, a designated representative of Claris, which is a subdivision of Apple. If you have questions that I can't answer, she will answer these questions for you because it's her fault. I didn't build it this way. I'm just the training guy, okay? Claris can take it, right? It's like Moki saying, hey, where's FileMaker 20?
You never get FileMaker 20. You're never going to get it unless you write Claris a big fat check.
Whoa, really? Yeah, so she said it, not me, okay? Next question.
Keith had a question. I don't know if you saw it in Zoom. Is your experience, is there a situation where a script trigger is critical?
Yesterday, we talked about I don't want to say the Pony Express, but if you're like horse and buggy from 1912, right? Once again, if I go to the new curriculum and I have my icons right here, okay? This is the world of validation in FileMaker. We ran into this today already, okay? If you use the validation tab in field definitions when defining a field, you're doing horse and buggy type validation, okay? So if you want to control what users are inputting into your file, you need to use script triggers on object validate or on object save, whichever one you want to do. We did some of this yesterday. We spent some time banging away on trying to control people putting the wrong kind of stuff into a phone field, okay? I would use a script triggers are great for jumping to a layout that users are on the wrong layout, evaluating the record, doing some maintenance on the record, doing a validation to make sure that the user puts the data correctly. Keith, you were here yesterday, right? I mean, I'm rephrasing this, but listen, scripts are critical. So let me back up and talk about this real quick and the progression. And then you'll understand why this is. So this is in the front of the book, wherever the book is at. Do I have a copy of the book anywhere? I don't see the book right here. Somewhere I have a copy of my book, okay? In the front of the current edition of the FileMaker Manual for Novices, we talk about these personas. Brand new developer, intermediate developer, senior ninja. A lot of people never get to be a senior engineer because they get enough skills at the at their intermediate level that they're completely functional. They can build great applications. So let's talk about this. A brand new developer builds an app. This is relevant. I'm going there, okay? Kyle's off right, wrote a book. I'm going to ignore that. Brand new developer, okay? They're trying to get the FileMaker solution to work. They don't care that it looks pretty initially. They're just putting a calculation there. They want it to work. They like doing that custom function that Kyle had with the words in there, and they're trying just to get the custom function to work. That's this person, okay? Then what happens is that they build something that works, might be ugly as hell, but it works. Someone sees it in their office, says, hey, can I use that too? That's why FileMaker is still in business. Those two sequential events right there are why they're in business. Because a brand new developer can be successful. Other people see that success and they want a piece of that action. They want to be successful because they see the brand new developer doing something in 1 hour that used to take 8 or 12 or 15 hours. It's 1 hour because FileMaker does it for them in 1 hour, okay? That's why FileMaker is still in business. No one at Claris understands that except a couple people, okay? I know they don't understand it because they don't understand that. Then what happens is that then right in here between these two groups is that you start sharing it. So shares it with 5 people, it's great. Share it with 10 people, it's great. Share it with 20 or 30 people, and it starts to slow down. Like it used to run really fast, and now it's slower. It still gives you the correct result, but instead of it taking an hour, it takes it 2 or 3 hours, where you click on something and you need pretty much 3 or 4 or 5 seconds of delay, maybe max, and it's taking it 30 seconds to generate a report or 2 or 3 minutes to generate a report. What you do is you realize that you've kind of pickled yourself into a corner with writing things a certain way. So what an intermediate developer does fundamentally is they take all the calculations and all these other things that they have spread all over, and in their FileMaker solution, this is an important concept, in their FileMaker solution, and if Michael Scott from Caltrans was around, he would validate this point. But what you do is you go into your solution that I managed to, wherever my contact file went, where'd it go over here? I'm gonna go over here. Can I find contacts? Where'd it go? C, con. Oh man, there's more than one. Like I'm gonna put it right here. I'm assuming that's the one I threw away. The place. Okay, great. Come over here. Here's the context file. Double click it. Okay, it's an old one. That's fine, whatever. And I go field definitions, okay? Any calculations that you have right? One of the things that you do is, as an intermediate developer, is that calculations and summary fields will fire when they want to, not when you want them to, okay? So in the world of FileMaker, as you get into copies of starting point and things like that, if I come over here to FM starting point, here's an older copy of starting point, okay, right here. See if I can get it to pop up. I've got that open. Actually, I can open this from here, okay? For performance, what we end up coming over here, we're on the contact screen right here. Everything that's a calculation, unless we know that it's not going to be impactful, like we have these unstored calculations here that probably don't show up, but everything that's a calculation, not like these right here, that's a filter, they're not on screens, generally not a problem. You remove everything that's going to be that's a summary field or a calculation, you make it a text or number field, and you drive it from a script. Basically, at the end of the day, you could take all these fields and anything that's a calculation right here, you change these all to a text or number field, and you drive that value with a set field from a script. Because with FileMaker, all it has to do is deliver the results to you, display 5,000 records to you. It does it instantaneously. It's quick. Where it slows down, spins, or where it's like, oh, well, I've got to total this up and I got to do this work over here. And it's doing all this work behind the scenes. We articulate this first couple pages of the book. Margaret helped me write this. She's here with me, okay? And so the idea is to remove the calculations from here where you really can't control when they fire to a script. The script only runs when you tell it to run. So why are triggers useful? Because maybe you come to this screen and you need something to update and you don't necessarily want to push a button to get it to update. But you want to have it in a very specific script that you tell it to fire when you want it to fire. Does that make sense? So for example, if I go to recents, I go to finished goods, I'm going to open up the finished goods file and I'm going to go to contacts. And so this is a sample record. This is not a real person, okay? So if I go over here to manage the subscriptions and memberships, I have a subscription over here, okay? If I change these values in here and run some calculation and do some math, the process of the script running to update the work is not instantaneous. I can press this button, click, 1, 2, 3, 4. It did it. That was 4 seconds of raw processing that I told it when to execute specifically. If I had come to this screen and I flipped to another screen and I flipped to another screen, it could run automatically all the time behind the scenes. So I only want to run when I tell it to, because there's a reason I want to update. I want to make sure these dates are all up to date. Does that make sense? So you want to precisely control stuff with a script. Script triggers are the way you trip the scripts because you're going to need these scripts for performance optimization. Is that what makes sense, right? You're going to need the scripts for performance optimization. It's an inevitable thing. And the triggers are what you allow you to activate that, okay? I mean, listen, scripts are in there all over the place, but they're like, but triggers allow you to activate them like landmines. It's kind of a negative connotation, but you step on it and it goes off, right? I mean, in the Discord over here a second ago, we went to Discord, right? Wherever the exploding person was here. He is actively pulling the pin and throwing at the door. That he pressed the button for this to happen. It was a deliberate action, as opposed to stepping on it and it doing it for him automatically behind the scenes. That's what triggers allow you to do. Automatically run. The user doesn't even know they've run a script. They have no idea they've run a script. Unless it's a script that takes 5 minutes to run, and then they get a progress bar saying, it's happening, come back in 5 minutes with some coffee. So pretty interesting stuff. So this is a manually activated script as opposed to stepping on something and having it. So what I do with this is to control this precisely. I run one at a time, but every night, if I look at my system, I have 78,000 people that we interact with one way or the other over the last, say, 15, 20 years, okay, doing training, okay? And as a result of that, I don't want to have to run this update every day in the middle of the day. So I have a robot, and that's what Nick's going to be covering coming up here in a couple of weeks. You're going to start a very deep process on building robots that run on the server, okay? And And that my robot runs at 2 or 3 in the morning. It finds all the records that have changed, have been modified, and then it essentially runs through all of them, and presses the button for me. Takes it about an hour in the middle of the night with no one around. Okay. That way during the day, it's all up to date. Then during the day, people come in, say someone downloads a copy of Starting Point, it changes their the fact that they're more current than they have been before. They've interacted with us. They're a little bit more fresh. It updates, so they come up that night for an update, right? And we keep track of the down here. I mean, this is it's lead scoring, things like that. Something I don't really do too much with, but once upon a time we thought it might be useful. This tells me the value of the person, my hypothetical person, right? So based upon how many copies of things they bought, how many free things they've downloaded, I can score their value to the organization, right? I hate to say it's numbers, but when you start dealing with big money, which we're not really, but I learned this from Claris, because when the Claris management team came in 7 years ago, they were horrified that Claris had no way of scoring their customers. Which customers were the most valuable? Well, you could say, well, which ones have bought the most money over the last year? But then there's all these other criteria in there. There's all these other criteria. There's, well, did they interact with us? Did they call tech support? Did they buy some stuff from us? Did they download a bunch of stuff, right? Part of the lead scoring is scoring them to know if you should talk to them about buying the product. Claris has millions of users, millions and millions of users, 100,000 plus customers, and they had no scoring system. So they did this whole scoring thing, and I kind of learned around the periphery what they were doing. I adapted, made a light version for myself. I thought it was a great idea, right? And so, but the scoring is a lot of math. It adds up all the interactions that we've had. Like if I email someone a campaign, right, and they get an email and it doesn't bounce, they get 3 points. If they they watched a live stream or something, they download a copy of a sample file, they get 30 points. And so this is a sample record. It doesn't matter. Each of you probably are in here one way or the other. Doesn't matter. But then you have this total score, but that's historical score. Then I say how much of the points are in the last 90 days, right? And so you come up with that. So that's a lot of math. This thing does this at night. So during the day, I can do a search and say, show me everyone who has a score above this. If you build this as this person right here, and you say, come to me, and show me everyone with a freshness score. I'm gonna do a find. I'm gonna come over here and do a find. Find a freshness score live right now of more than 100 points. These are the people I should talk to sell product to. Bam, okay, 317. I'm the first one in here. I have 317 people that have a higher level of score, a score of at least 100, okay, right? Well, notice that was instantaneous. If this person built it right here, this would be a dialogue that would take an hour for it to evaluate, if not 2 or 3 or 4 hours, okay? As an intermediate developer, you take that calculation, you put it in a script, and you only run it when you want it to run. In my case, I run it at night. So during the day, I know that as of last night at 2 in the morning, all these numbers for every record of all 78,000 records were updated. So you have the beginning developer, and then they run into performance issues, maybe in a year, maybe in 5 years, maybe never, okay? And then you learn to take all the stuff that kind of made you go slow and you put it in scripts. What do script triggers do? Allow us to fire the scripts when we want, when it's opportune, when your boss isn't sitting there waiting for it to happen. The last thing you want to do is do this search right here. Hey, show me everyone above 50 points, okay? Freshness score above 50. FileMaker above 50. Doot, doot, doot. Bam, instantaneous. Everyone's above 50? Did I say 50? Did I refund? Oh, I just put 50, exact 50. Sorry, greater than 50. 1,537, okay? Instantaneous. A beginning developer can't do that. An intermediate developer who takes stuff and scripts it, does all the things in scripting, can do that. All right, I beat this. All right, so that's...
I think we're done. It's about 12 minutes.
Yeah, we're past done on that. We, I guess I'm trying to explain why these are important, why script triggers are important. If you have a question, shoot me an email to support RC Consulting. Lonnie shoots me an email, and that's why we kind of answer some of these questions here. Shoot us an email, okay? Shoot us an email to support RC Consulting. We'll try to glue it in the next couple of days. All right, everyone, that's it for today. Be good
Goodbye.
or don't be good.